Alright, YouTube! We got every NBA story so dark, it disappeared. Let's get into it.
At Kyrie incident. The night was May 30th, 2021. Right after the Nets beat Boston to take a 3-1 lead in the playoffs, Kyrie Irving was walking off the court when a plastic water bottle flew from the stands and grazed his head. It came from a fan, 21-year-old Cole Buckley, wearing a Celtics jersey and clearly not thinking things through. Boston police moved in fast and arrested him on the spot with the help of security. The bottle was reportedly Dasani, and even though it barely touched Irving, the charge wasn't light. Buckley got hit with assault and battery by means of a
I mean, I'm gonna be honest, we don't know what that bottle could have had inside of it. He could have, God forbid, planted something on a cap or, like done something, like, we don't know what that could have done to Kai, even though it's a water bottle. It could have just, like I said, it barely even grazed him, so barely even touched him, probably like flew and went right over his head and probably touched his hair and then looked back and was like, who the fuck?
Dangerous weapon. Under Massachusetts law, even a water bottle can count if it's thrown at someone's head with force. That's a felony. The max, 10 years in prison and a fine of up to $5,000. Buckley pleaded not guilty, posted $500 in bail, and got released. But he didn't walk away clean. A judge banned him from TD Garden permanently. Security footage confirmed what happened, and players like Tyler Johnson reacted immediately. The whole thing wasn't just caught on camera, it sparked major fallout. TD Garden released a statement reinforcing their zero tolerance policy. Kyrie didn't hold back either, pointing to what he called underlying racism and saying players are treated like they're in a human zoo. The league didn't ignore it. They backed players, stressed safety, and reminded everyone that fan behavior has consequences. That same night, someone else was also arrested in the arena for unrelated chaos. But Buckley's case stood out, not just for what happened, but for how seriously it was taken. Chris Copeland stabbing. Just before 4 in the morning on April 8, 2015, outside a Manhattan nightclub called One Oak, Chris Copeland was stabbed. He was 31.
That's sad. I do remember this dude playing in the NBA. I do remember this dude, bro. That's sad.
And playing for the Indiana Pacers at the time. According to reports, he was attacked in the abdomen and left elbow. The blade reportedly touched his diaphragm, and he also fractured his elbow and had cuts on his left hand. He was rushed to Bellevue Hospital and went into surgery that Thursday. Afterward, he remained in intensive care but was stable. His companion, 28-year-old Katrina Saltara, was also stabbed during the attack.
No.
She had wounds on her arm, breast, and buttocks and needed about 22 stitches.
Who is doing this to these people? Especially an NBA player, bro. Like, who the fuck? Surprised that nigga ain't had nothing on him. Them NBA players be having that shit,
Saltara stayed at the hospital until she knew Copeland was all right. A third woman, linked to the suspect, was also slashed in the abdomen, but treated and released. The attacker was identified as 22-year-old Shezoy Murdoch from Brooklyn. Police said he pulled a knife during a dispute and began stabbing. A switchblade was recovered at the scene. He was arrested immediately and charged with felony assault and criminal possession of a weapon. Bail was set at $20,000. Cops said Copeland and Saltara were arguing when Murdoch stepped in, and things escalated. Another report said,
Whoa. So you telling me the nigga stepped into an argument that wasn't even between him or his female? Nigga, that is a whole nother two individuals having an argument, and you stepping in, and then you... Did he have a relationship with... Like,
it was just a conversation, and Copeland told him he was leaving, which sparked the violence. Also that night, 2 Atlanta Hawks players, Thabo Sefolosha and Pero Antic, were arrested nearby after allegedly interfering with police. Sefolosha ended up with a broken leg and missed the rest of the season. Copeland later apologized for being out that late and eventually filed a lawsuit against the nightclub, saying they failed to prevent the stabbing. Marvin Bad News, Barnes, cocaine.
Was the teammates in on this too? Yo, that's some shady shit.
During the 1978 to 79 season with the Boston Celtics, Marvin Barnes admitted he used cocaine while sitting on the bench during games. Not before,
on the
not
bench?
After, during. He'd sit right next to teammates like Nate Archibald, stashed the coke under a towel, and snored it mid-game. According to him, other
that motherfucker was hitting that shit. All right, let's go. Let's go for some buckets.
Players slowly started sliding away once they caught on. This wasn't some isolated moment. Barnes said his cocaine use happened before games, at halftime, and even during the actual action. It became a symbol of his unraveling career. That Celtics season ended up being his only one with the team. His contract was cut at the end, and it was no mystery why. Barnes had been dominant in the ABA, averaging over 24 points and 10 rebounds. But once he hit the NBA, the numbers dropped fast. He went from one of the league's most exciting young players to barely making a roster. His own words made it clear. He blamed the drugs. He spoke about how deeply it took over his life, saying he couldn't even estimate how much money he lost to cocaine. He used his story to warn younger generations later on, trying to turn all that chaos into something meaningful. After basketball, things didn't exactly settle down. He dealt with arrests, possession charges, and the same addictions that haunted him in the league. Still, he tried to help kids and talk honestly about everything he threw away, but nothing erased what happened on that bench in Boston. That moment, when a former star turned his career into a warning sign, Barnes owned it, called it what it was, and never made excuses for what it cost.
And I guarantee you, he wasn't the only one, just the one that got caught up with him.
Boston. By the way, if you guys want to subscribe, I'm going to be posting every day. Thanks. Anyways, Patrick Ewing, UNC visit, and KK Kairali. Patrick Ewing was one of the most heavily recruited high school basketball players in the country. While at Cambridge Rindge and Latin in Massachusetts, he had offers from top programs, including Georgetown, North Carolina, UCLA, and Villanova. One of the schools he strongly considered was UNC, where legendary coach Dean Smith hoped to land him. During his official visit to UNC, Ewing stayed at the Carolina Inn. It was supposed to be a routine recruiting trip, but something happened that left a lasting impression. While he was in Chapel Hill, a Ku Klux Klan rally was held near the campus. Ewing spoke about it years later, saying the rally was visible, loud, and impossible to ignore. He said it made him uncomfortable and made it hard for him to picture living there. Ewing also joked that he hated how dark it was at night and how loud the crickets were. But the rally wasn't a joke, even though some reporters couldn't find confirmed details about the rally size or exact location. Ewing's own account has been reported widely and consistently. Dean Smith didn't pressure Ewing to commit. In fact, he told Ewing that if he didn't choose UNC, he should go play for Georgetown's coach, John Thompson. That advice stuck. Georgetown became Ewing's final visit and his top choice. He said multiple things played into that decision, including the coaching staff and how comfortable he felt there. Ewing later became the #1 pick in the NBA draft after a dominant college run. That one recruiting trip to Chapel Hill, though, changed the course of his career. And it all started with what he saw outside the Carolina Utah Jazz plane emergency. On March 30th, 2021, the Utah Jazz boarded a chartered Delta Boeing 757 headed to Memphis. But just after taking off from Salt Lake City, the plane struck a flock of birds. One of them got sucked into the left engine, which immediately failed and caught fire. The pilots declared an emergency and made a quick decision to turn back. Inside the cabin, players described a loud impact, the plane shaking, and then a frightening drop in altitude. Some saw flames outside the windows. Mike Conley said those next 10 to 15 minutes had everyone thinking this could be the end. Jordan Clarkson remembered people texting their families just in case. It was chaos, and nobody really knew what was going on until the flight crew stabilized the aircraft and began working through emergency protocols. The plane returned safely to Salt Lake City. There were no injuries, but the emotional impact was real. The team waited at the airport while another plane was arranged. Later that night, most of the team flew out again, but Donovan Mitchell didn't. He was listed out for personal reasons, and it's not a mystery. He's admitted before he's afraid of flying. The bird strike was the cause. It happens sometimes, especially during takeoff or landing, and in this case, it destroyed the engine. The crew handled everything by the book, and no one got hurt. Still, the players left that experience pretty shaken. One second, they were heading to a game. The next, they were wondering if they'd ever play again. That flight changed how some of them looked at life, not just basketball. Paul Pierce, DUI arrest. On October 7th, 2025, Paul Pierce was found asleep in his Range Rover on the 101 freeway in Los Angeles. California Highway Patrol officers were already responding to a separate multi-car crash near Lancashire Boulevard when they saw his SUV stopped in a traffic lane. When they walked up, Pierce was asleep behind the wheel. Officers noted signs of alcohol impairment, so they launched a DUI investigation. Pierce was arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence and taken to the CHP Central Los Angeles station, where he was booked. No one was hurt, and there were no other passengers reported in the vehicle. After booking, he was cited and released from custody. The Los Angeles City Attorney's Office is reviewing the case, and Pierce has now been formally charged with 2 misdemeanors, driving under the influence and driving with a blood alcohol content of 0.0.
You lucky you Paul Pierce. Like, that's all I gotta say, gang. He is very lucky he is Paul motherfucking Pierce.
0.08% or higher. His arraignment was set for November 12th. Pierce posted on social media saying he'd been stuck in traffic for 45 minutes and fell asleep from exhaustion. He didn't mention anything about impairment. He shared a photo from that night, saying he was old and tired and thanked people for their support. CHP officials followed standard procedures, including blood alcohol testing, which could factor into the case depending on lab results. So far, no conviction has been made, just charges. Pierce, a former NBA champion and finals MVP with the Celtics, played 19 seasons and later worked in broadcasting. This latest incident is under legal review, but for now, it's a developing situation with more updates expected once test results in court proceedings move forward. Isaiah Stewart vs. LeBron James altercation. On November 21st, 2021, during a regular season game between the Pistons and Lakers in Detroit, things took a turn in the third quarter. While boxing out for a rebound during a free throw, Isaiah Stewart was called for a loose ball foul. As the players tangled up, LeBron James swung his left elbow and it hit Stewart in the face, hard. The blow opened a cut above Stewart's eye, and blood started running immediately. Stewart did not take it lightly. He became visibly furious, trying multiple times to charge at LeBron. It took a crowd of players, officials, and staff to hold him back. Even after being stopped once, Stewart broke loose and tried to run back toward him again. The whole thing caused a major delay as officials struggled to calm it down. LeBron was given a flagrant foul penalty, 2 for unnecessary and excessive contact above the shoulder, and was ejected. Stewart received 2 technical fouls for escalation and was also ejected. Stewart needed several stitches to close the wound above his eye. The NBA came down with suspensions the next day. LeBron got 1 game for recklessly hitting Stewart, marking a rare suspension in his long career. Stewart received a 2-game suspension for escalating the situation by repeatedly going after James. The league cited the location and intensity of the contact for LeBron's flagrant, and Stewart's chase down was why he got 2 games. The whole thing happened just 2 days after the anniversary of the infamous Malice at the Palace, adding extra weight to the incident. Timing and the league's disciplinary decisions. Julius Randle broken leg. On October 28, 2014, Julius Randle played his first official NBA game for the Los Angeles Lakers. He was the 7th overall pick in that year's draft, coming out of Kentucky, and fans were expecting big things from him. But with just under 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter, everything changed. Randle was driving to the basket when his right leg gave out. There wasn't a major collision or obvious foul. He just landed awkwardly. The result was a fractured right tibia, the main bone in the lower leg. He immediately collapsed to the floor and stayed down, clearly in pain. Teammates, including Kobe Bryant, quickly rushed to check on him as medical staff came over. His leg was placed in an air cast and he was taken off the court on a stretcher. The atmosphere at Staples Center went from loud and energized to stunned silence. Just 14 minutes into his debut, his season was over. Randle underwent surgery the next day. The team confirmed he would miss the rest of the season to recover. That injury ended his rookie year before it ever really began. No more games, no more highlights, just rehab and a long road ahead. At the time, Randle was considered a major part of the Lakers' rebuild. That night, the Rockets beat the Lakers 108-90, but the score barely mattered after what happened. The spotlight shifted from basketball to Randle's health. A highly anticipated rookie season was reduced to a painful memory and a year lost before it even started. Zach Randolph punches Lou Amundsen. On February 17, 2009, the Clippers were in Phoenix to play the Suns. When things got ugly in the first quarter, Zach Randolph and Lou Amundsen were battling for a rebound when they got tangled up. That's when Randolph used his forearm to shove Amundsen to the floor. Now, most players would leave it there, not Randolph. As Amundsen stood up, Randolph threw a left-handed punch and hit him square in the jaw. It wasn't a scramble or a loose ball collision. It was a clear, deliberate punch after the play. Officials didn't waste any time. Randolph was ejected from the game immediately for violent conduct. Under league rules, that kind of contact means an automatic toss. There was no need for a long discussion or review. He was out. The NBA responded the next day by suspending Randolph for 2 games without pay. The league cited the act as a violation of its policies on fighting and unsportsmanlike conduct. The punch wasn't part of the game, it was retaliation, plain and simple. Lou Amundsen didn't retaliate and stayed in the game, but the hit was enough to land Randolph a suspension and another entry in his growing list of on-court incidents. Just 1 punch and 2 games gone. Dave Bing eye injury history. At just 5 years old, Dave Bing injured his left eye playing with a makeshift wooden toy. He tripped and fell, and a rusty nail punctured his eye. His family couldn't afford surgery, so the injury went untreated. That left him with permanent vision loss in his left eye for the rest of his life. Despite that, Bing excelled in basketball. He became a high school and college standout, was drafted 2nd overall in the 1966 NBA draft, and quickly became one of the league's best guards. But even after making it to the top, his vision problems weren't over. In the preseason, before the 1971-72 season, while playing in an exhibition game against the Lakers, Bing took a hit to the face while defending Happy Hairston. At first, he thought it was just a scratch. He even played in the regular season opener. The next day, his vision was worse, and doctors found he had a partially detached retina in his right eye, the good one. He underwent urgent surgery and had to spend time in total darkness post-op. He missed about 2.5 months of games. Doctors warned him about the risk of losing his vision, but Bing returned to action in late December and dropped 21 points in his first game back. He played 45 games that season and averaged over 22 points. Even with limited peripheral vision and long-term visual impairment, he adjusted his game and kept producing at a high level. He went on to play 9 more seasons, was a 7-time All-Star, and was eventually inducted into the Hall of Fame, all while playing with one bad eye and another that almost gave out. Rasheed Wallace referee confrontation. On January 15th, 2003, after a regular season game between the Portland Trail Blazers and the Memphis Grizzlies, Rasheed Wallace's frustration boiled over, but not on the court. During the game, Wallace had been called for a foul and then hit with a technical by referee Tim after throwing the ball toward another official. Wallace didn't appreciate the call, and he didn't let it go after the final buzzer. The confrontation happened off the court, in the arena's loading dock, an area where players and referees exit after the game. According to Donaghy, Wallace waited there and then approached him angrily. Donaghy claimed Wallace threatened him and said he wanted to fight. There was no physical contact, but the league reviewed the incident and determined Wallace's behavior crossed the line. The NBA came down hard. Wallace was suspended for 7 games without pay, one of the longest suspensions ever handed out, for an incident that didn't involve actual violence or substance abuse. The league said the punishment was based on Wallace's threatening conduct and the fact that it happened after the game, when emotions are supposed to cool down. At the time, Wallace already had a reputation for technical fouls and on-court confrontations. This only added to that legacy. Even though nothing physical happened in that loading dock, the league made it clear that intimidation off the court would be taken seriously. 7 games gone, not for throwing punches, but for making the threat feel real enough to act. Trailblazers, 1993 Salt Lake City scandal. In January 1993, during a road trip to Utah, 4 Portland Trailblazers players, Dave Johnson, Tracy Murray, Reggie Smith, and Jerome Kersey, were linked to an off-court controversy involving 2 16-year-old girls and a third who was 15. The incident took place on January 23rd, while the team was in Salt Lake City. The girls claimed they had consensual sexual encounters with the players that night. The accusations sparked a police investigation that drew widespread attention. Authorities interviewed the girls and the players, but no criminal charges were filed. The Salt Lake County Attorney's Office said they couldn't prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the players coerced or enticed the girls. There were also questions about the girls' stated ages and inconsistencies in their accounts. The girls declined to pursue misdemeanor charges, such as contributing to the delinquency of a minor. So legally, the case ended there. No charges, no arrests, and no court proceeding. Internally, though, the Trailblazers handed out punishments. Dave Johnson and Tracy Murray were each suspended 3 games without pay. Jerome
Guarantee you they were underage, and they couldn't charge them because they probably had fake accounts that made it seem like they were actually of age. And bro, come on, gang. We are grown men in the NBA. You should know the difference between a grown woman or an 18-year-old, 19-year-old woman, 20-year-old, even if she's young, versus a 16, 15. But we know what a 15-year-old looks like, gang. Like, what are we doing?
Jerome Kersey and Reggie Smith were fined, but not suspended. Both Kersey and Smith made public apologies, while Johnson and Murray did not. Team officials said the players had shown poor judgment and emphasized that violations of team conduct were taken seriously. The incident added to a string of off-court problems that had followed the Trailblazers during that era. Still, with no legal convictions and all 4 players returning to action, the story faded from the headlines, but not from the franchise's history. Latrell, Sprewell, and Jerome Kersey.
Blazers, you guys are cursed.
In 1995, during a Golden State Warriors practice, Latrell Sprewell and Jerome Kersey got into a fight that went way beyond typical scrimmage heat. It started with contact on a layup attempt. Kersey reportedly gave Sprewell a shove from behind, and the two exchanged words before it turned physical. They were separated, but it didn't end there. Sprewell left the area, then came back minutes later carrying a 2x4. Yes, an actual piece of lumber. According to multiple reports, he was angry, aggressive, and looking to escalate things. Some accounts say he also threatened to return with a gun. That threat was taken seriously. Team staff reportedly hid Kersey in the locker room while teammates stepped in to defuse the situation and keep Sprewell from doing anything worse. No physical attack happened with the 2x4 thanks to the quick response from the others at practice. But the fact that it got that far is what's made the story stick. It was never formally addressed by the league. Sprewell wasn't suspended and no public disciplinary action was announced. At the time, the incident wasn't widely reported. It resurfaced years later as part of a pattern in Sprewell's career that pointed to volatile behavior. Unlike his later infamous choking incident with Coach P.J. Carlesimo in 1997, this confrontation didn't make headlines immediately. But inside the organization, it was serious enough to cause fear. Both Sprewell and Kersey downplayed the fight afterward, and their relationship was described as functional later on. But for a moment, that practice nearly turned into something far more dangerous. Charles Oakley punches Jeff McInnis in December 2000 during a pregame shoot-around at the Air Canada Center in Toronto. Charles Oakley walked across the court and punched Clippers guard Jeff McInnis in the face. McInnis was sitting on the bench, putting on warm-ups, not expecting any kind of confrontation, let alone a right.
Nigga was on the bench putting on. Alright, man, let's get ready to go hoop, man. We got a game to. What the fuck? It's just like, damn.
Hook from a veteran forward on the opposing team. The punch landed clean, leaving visible swelling on McInnis' face. Players and coaches from both teams stepped in quickly. McInnis tried to retaliate twice, but never got close enough to connect. The situation didn't escalate into a brawl, but it was clear something personal was going on. Reports at the time said the two had beef going back months. Some sources pointed to a personal dispute off the court, involving someone both men knew, though the details weren't confirmed by the league. Oakley later claimed he didn't go over to start a fight. He just wanted to confront McInnis about that ongoing issue. That explanation didn't carry much.
He just said, I had to make it be known what it was, and he knew what it was.
Weight with the NBA. Oakley was suspended for 3 games and fined $15,000. The league didn't discipline McInnis at all. Oakley also sat out that night's game. The punch was one and done, but it added another chapter to Oakley's no-nonsense legacy. It wasn't about a hard foul or something that happened during play. This was personal. It happened in warm-ups in front of both teams and ended with a veteran throwing hands over an unresolved grudge from off the court. Embiid's orbital fracture. The injury happened during the 2017 to 2018 season when Joel Embiid collided with teammate Markelle Fultz and took a shoulder to the face. That hit fractured the bone around his eye socket and gave him a concussion. He needed surgery and was out for the rest of the regular season. He also missed the first 2 games of the playoffs, which was a huge blow since he was having one of his best years. While recovering, he wasn't thrilled about being sidelined. He went on Instagram and said he was sick and tired of being baby. That post made waves. Everyone knew how badly he wanted to play, but the medical staff wasn't about to rush him back with a busted face. The first round opponent, the Miami Heat. The first 2 games, no Embiid, but in Game 3, he came back wearing a custom-made mask approved by the league. It was carbon fiber and polycarbonate, and it looked like something out of a superhero movie. Then came the drum. Winslow stomped on the mask when it came off during the game. He got fined $15,000. Embiid, he laughed it off and said he had about 50 of them. Like breaking one wasn't a big deal. That quote stuck. His return turned into one of those playoff moments people still remember. He came back with a face guard, dropped 23 points, and looked like he hadn't missed a step. Between the injury the social media outburst, the mask, and the mask stomping incident, it became one of the most memorable injury comebacks in recent playoff history. Shaq versus Brad Miller. This went down in January of 2002 during a regular season game between the Lakers and Bulls. Shaq was dealing with some seriously physical play from both Brad Miller and Charles Oakley, who weren't exactly handing out hugs under the basket. After a hard foul from Miller, Shaq snapped. He spun around and fired off a wild right-handed punch at Miller.
Ooh.
That punch, it missed. Barely. If Miller had leaned in just a little, we'd probably be talking about something way worse. Instead, it was mostly air, but it was enough to send both benches into chaos. Everyone from players to coaches stormed the floor, trying to keep it from turning into a full-on brawl. Oakley, of course, was in the mix too, because of course he was. The league did not let that slide. Shaq got suspended for 3 games and hit with a $15,000 fine. Miller got ejected on the spot, and some sources say he got a 1-game suspension afterward, though that part's a little murky. Either way, it was one of those rare moments where Shaq lost it. The thing is, Shaq wasn't exactly known for throwing punches. He was physical, sure, but fights like this weren't his thing. That's what made this whole thing stand out. The guy just got fed up. Miller walked away without injury, aside from a ripped jersey and probably a jumpsuit. It's one of those moments fans remember because of how close it came to being a knockout, and because it showed that even Shaq had a breaking point when guys kept testing him under the basket. No feud, no buildup, just too many hits, and one swing that nearly landed. Xavier McDaniel's choking incidents. Xavier McDaniel, better known as X-Man, built a reputation in the NBA for playing with grit, force, and just a bit of menace. Standing 6'7" and known for his bruising style, he made a name for himself in the 80s and 90s, not just with buckets, but with how physical he could get. And that includes a couple of infamous choking incidents. The first happened during
multiple choking is the fucking bro.
During a 1987 game between the Seattle Supersonics and the Los Angeles Lakers. McDaniel got tangled up with guard Wes Matthews during a loose ball play. As things escalated, McDaniel straight up wrapped his fingers around Matthews' throat. It wasn't subtle. The image of that moment has circled basketball circles for years. The officials hit him with a technical foul, but somehow he wasn't ejected. That moment still lives on through grainy clips and fan memory as one of the wildest visual examples of on-court intimidation. Then there's the practice story with Gary Payton. During Payton's rookie season in 1990, he got into it with McDaniel during a team practice. According to Payton himself, McDaniel grabbed him by the neck and locked him in a sleeper-style hold. That wasn't during a game. That was just another day in the gym. It didn't leave a mark, but the message was loud and clear. McDaniel's mix of leadership and intimidation wasn't just strategy, it was identity. His aggressive style made him a dominant presence.
He's like,
and these choking moments became legendary examples of how far he'd go to enforce that identity. Whether it was a game or practice, he made it clear that he wasn't backing down, not even a little. Tyrus Thomas's broken nose debut. Tyrus Thomas made his NBA debut during the 2006 to 2007 season opener with the Chicago Bulls. He had just been drafted 4th overall and traded to Chicago on draft night, ready to make an impression, but things took a rough turn almost immediately. While chasing down a rebound in his very first game, Thomas took a sharp elbow to the face from James Posey, who was with the Miami Heat at the time. That hit broke his nose. First game, first injury. Not the kind of debut anyone dreams about. The impact wasn't light. It forced him to miss time. And when he finally returned later in the season, he came back wearing a protective mask. That mask would become a part of his rookie year look, all because of that early elbow. It's the kind of welcome to the league moment no rookie wants, but Thomas didn't have much of a choice. This wasn't one of those situations where there's debate about what happened. The reports are clear. It was a broken nose caused by a hit during a rebound play, and it happened in his very first NBA appearance. Posey wasn't targeting him, but the result left Thomas on the injury list before he had a chance to settle into the league. For Bulls fans and basketball history buffs, it's a rare example of how unpredictable a debut can be. 1 minute, you're stepping into your professional career, and the next, you're on the bench wearing a face mask because your nose got smashed by a veteran's elbow. Not exactly the ideal first impression, but it definitely set a tone. Zhaire Smith's allergic reaction. Smith was the 16th overall pick in the 2018 draft, traded to the Philadelphia 76ers with high hopes. But before he ever played an NBA game, things took a terrifying turn. While recovering from a foot injury, he ate chicken at the Sixers facility in September. Almost immediately, his lips tingled and began to swell. He took Benadryl and stepped into the shower, thinking it had passed. It didn't. His body broke out in hives. The swelling intensified. He tried using an EpiPen, but it was expired and didn't work. He collapsed at home.
This nigga did any and everything besides, alright, let me try going to the doctor or something. This nigga used an expired EpiPen? GG's, gang, you cooked yourself, huh?
And paramedics had to step in. By the time he reached the hospital, he was vomiting blood. Doctors found a tear in his esophagus. It was full.
What was in that chicken? A tear in his oh my god.
On anaphylaxis. He stayed in the hospital for about 6 weeks. Couldn't eat, couldn't even drink. Tubes were inserted to feed him and drain fluid from his body. His weight dropped from around 200 pounds to 160. He couldn't walk without help. Everything had to start from zero. The cause? A sesame allergy. Smith already had known peanut allergies.
A sesame allergy? What?
But sesame hadn't been detected. The food likely had sesame or cross-contamination. From then on, he avoided any food that hadn't already been cleared. When he was finally discharged, he still had tubes in place and needed home care. Over time, he regained strength through shakes, walking, and light drills. He returned to action with the Delaware Bluecoats on March 1st and made his NBA debut on March 25th. That allergic reaction didn't just sideline him, it nearly ended everything. His rookie season became about survival, not stats. And that's a comeback most people never see. Zach Edey's speeding incident. On May 1st, 2025, Zach Edey was pulled over in Tippecanoe County, Indiana, after state police clocked him going 101 miles per hour in a 55 zone. He was driving northbound on Indiana 25 when officers spotted the high speed and pulled him over. Edey told the trooper he was trying to pass another car, which is why his speed shot up so fast. The officer wasn't buying it. Body cam footage shows the trooper snapping back with, "You don't pass at 100. 100 is not okay." The whole thing unfolded calmly, but that quote stuck. It was clear the officer thought Edey's reasoning didn't hold up, and he was hit with a citation right there on the spot. Legally, things got serious for a moment. He was charged with misdemeanor reckless driving because of the extreme speed. That charge didn't stick though. On July 23rd, Edey worked out a plea deal with prosecutors. He admitted to a speeding violation instead of reckless driving and agreed to pay about $639.50 in total fines.
What money can do. He's like, bro, please take this off my record. I do not need this on my record. I will pay you $63,000. I will pay you whatever amount of money you want me to do. Just take this reckless driving off of my record, please. Please.
And court costs. In return, the misdemeanor was dropped and no jail time was involved. The stop happened during the off-season, so it didn't connect to any team activity. There's been no clear word from the NBA or the Grizzlies about whether they plan to follow up with any internal discipline. The most memorable part, though, that scolding from the officer. It turned a routine traffic stop into a viral moment and added a strange little footnote to the early days of Edey's pro career. Not the kind of headline a rookie wants. Nerlens Knowles torn ACL. On February 12th, 2013, while playing for Kentucky, Nerlens Knowles tore the ACL in his left knee after landing awkwardly on a chase down block against Florida. It ended his college season immediately. At the time, he was dominating defensively and averaging over 10 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 blocks per game. He was leading the nation in shot blocking and considered a likely #1 pick in that year's draft. Even after the injury, some general managers still believed he was worth taking first, trusting modern surgery and rehab. But draft night told a different story. Knowles slid to the 6th overall pick. The New Orleans Pelicans selected him, then traded him to Philadelphia in a deal involving Drew Holiday. The ACL tear had created enough concern to cost him top 5 status and the earnings that would have come with it. Once in Philadelphia, the Sixers made it clear he wouldn't play during the 2013 to 2014 season. Even though early projections suggested he might return mid-year, the team chose to prioritize a full recovery. He spent the entire season rehabbing. That decision, while cautious, delayed his NBA debut and robbed him of a full rookie year. When he finally took the floor in 2014, he averaged nearly 10 points, 8 rebounds, and just under 2 blocks a game. He earned all-rookie first-team honors. Still, the injury shifted expectations. Instead of launching straight into stardom, he was forced into a slower climb. That torn ACL didn't end his career, but it reshaped the beginning. Falling in the draft, missing time.
That shit fucked him up.